Hi all. So, I'm Sean, I'm autistic and have ADHD, and this is the latest update about the car I'm building. This one I'm going to tell you a bit more about the engine wiring, a bit about the clutch I've fitted, a bit about the handbrake, so it's a kind of an update as to what I've been up to for a while. So, the observant among you might have noticed I just changed that intro very slightly, making it even clear I'm autistic and I have ADHD. Why am I doing that? I'm feeling under attack at the moment. First is quite simple. I did a couple of videos on the TVR, and I don't know if it's my sense of humour or something, but some people just didn't get it. So what I want to just quickly explain at the beginning, because some people seem to be confused. Autistic, okay? That doesn't mean stupid, that doesn't mean dumb, that doesn't mean thick. The chances are, so you know, I've done IQ tests, I've got quite high qualifications in electronic engineering and all this sort of stuff. But there's some people who watch the videos who seem to think I'm dumb and I'm thick, or whatever else. Autism does not mean those things, okay? I've said it many times on this channel. You look at history and people they believe were autistic. You've got people like Darwin, you've got people like Einstein, you've got people like Tesla. If you think those people were thick because they're autistic, then oh, so be it. What I'll say to you, people who think anyone with autism is thick, is you people, you neurotypical people with your risk averse, never try anything new, sit behind your keyboards criticising people like me who are trying to make these videos but never actually do anything yourself, or who think that because you post a video, that's okay, that makes you fair game for you to be rude, obnoxious. I would say almost like mansplaining. I know, I'm a bloke, shouldn't know, should I? You can't mansplain to me. Anyway, if you think autism means those things, you're wrong, okay? So please don't bother. I'm always very appreciative of constructive feedback. I am not very happy about being called dumb and all those sort of things. So, that's that little rant over with. We've got another rant. And I would say it seems a very strange thing, doesn't it? I'm going to say to you, I'm feeling under attack at the moment by, maybe not society, but certainly by politicians. You're quite right here thinking, how can a middle-aged white bloke say he's under attack? And I've got to say, it's a position I never ever thought I would be in, for feeling like this. You know, I've got masses of privilege, and I would say even though I feel under attack at the moment, I am still fully understanding that I have massive advantage over in life, probably against most people in the UK, most people in the Western world, and worldwide, certainly, you know, massive advantage. But being autistic at the moment and ADHD, even the Labour Party have now jumped on to the bandwagon of there being too many people diagnosed. It almost seems, and we're not saying they've solved the immigration problem, I'm not saying there is a problem with immigration either, because that's a whole different issue, but not one for here. It almost feels to me like they're getting fed up with blaming everything on immigrants in this country, but they seem to be attacking all the time. We've had all that rubbish from America coming over, you know, where they're going to find a cure to autism, as if most people who are autistic actually want to be cured. We don't. Most people who are autistic, we don't want to be cured, but we would like a little bit of understanding. I was about a month, 6 weeks ago, I saw Kemi Badenoch on standing in Parliament, you know, at the dispatch box, saying that it's wrong that people, that we're talking about mobility, the mobility grants or something. I'm not too sure the ins and outs of them because I've never had one. But that anyone, even with ADHD, can get a mobility grant and they can use that for a luxury car. Well, that was news to me. So, you know, I quite like cars. Ooh, I get online, I'll find out if this is true. And of course it wasn't true. Of course it wasn't true that somebody with ADHD can get a massive grant to get towards a flash car. Could I even get a grant of 5p because I've got ADHD? No, I can't. You don't get a diagnosis by seeing your GP for 5 minutes and they go, oh yeah, you've got ADHD, there we are. Here's a check for your flash car. Doesn't happen like that, okay? That bit, total crap, absolute rubbish, don't believe them. So the latest bit, which I'm gotta say I'm really quite surprised by, is Wes Streeting now saying, and it's been on the news, I mean, I'm probably seeing far more of it, of course, because if I go on Facebook, they're going to say, put news feeds and stuff towards me about autism, and if it's news stories knocking autism or questioning or whatever, of course they're going to come up on my feed because, oh, what's his face who owns Facebook knows that it's more likely to make me click, you know, rage bait and all that sort of stuff. So even they're investigating the overdiagnosis in ADHD and autism and the gaps in help offered. But overdiagnosis, okay, I doubt it very much. I mean, let's face it, when I got my diagnosis about 3 or 4 years ago, it was about a 1 year waiting list. I believe it's a 4 or 5 year waiting list now. And gaps in the help. Can you have a gap in something that there's nothing of? I'm not sure you can even have a gap because there is no help. Okay, when I was diagnosed, I got the diagnosis, the 2 separate diagnoses, okay, 2 separate procedures to get diagnosed. Was there a list, a thing sent to me saying, now you're definitely autistic, these are the things that can help you. There's access to work stuff through DWP. Whether if you're employed, there's certain things that you can ask DWP for help with. So it goes across all disabilities, not just autism and ADHD, but you know, things like chairs and seating and lighting, you know, these sort of things that they will help out with the cost with. And if you're self-employed like me, there is some money available to help with the things that are difficult for us to do. For instance, the organisation thing with ADHD is really quite poor. I have to pay somebody to do the dispatches of my products that I sell online because I was making so many mistakes with it. It didn't matter how many times I checked, how many times you do a checklist. It just doesn't work, okay? It just doesn't work. So there was none of that, there was no list of that. I actually didn't find out about the help for self-employed people until 1.5 years later when my daughter happened to have watched a TikTok video that mentioned it. Okay, and I applied for that. I applied for that in July 2024. It's now December 2025. Do you think I've heard from the DWP yet? Yeah, of course I have. I had a very brief phone call just outlining what the thing was, and it all sounded hunky-dory. And now I'm still on the waiting list to actually be assessed. Yeah. Okay, so we're what's that, 18 months later? So this shower of money that was going to come down on me, I'm still waiting for it. I look forward to it. And if I suddenly become a millionaire because the government is suddenly giving me so much money, I will do one update on here about it before I sail off in my yacht across the ocean into the sunset, okay? So I'm just trying. I don't know in your lives how many autistic ADHD people you know. It's possible I'm the only person you do know. So what I'm trying to do with these videos is obviously tell you a bit about the car, but also just to try and correct some of the rubbish, some of the BS that's out there at the moment. And there is a lot of it. Like I said at the top, I am very, very surprised to find myself as a middle class, white, middle-aged male in the UK to find out things are my fault. It's my fault that the government are overspending on what do you call it? Not AIDS. See, ADHD. It was one of the traits. You forget simple words sometimes. And that's sometimes why people think I'm stupid and they talk to me like I'm stupid. Okay? Because sometimes the simplest words disappear. Anyway, you might be able to tell I'm pretty pissed off about this at the moment. Just feel so helpless, really, and me banging on to you people out there, all very few of you, is one of the few things I can do, and I feel like I can do, and I can feel like maybe I'm making a tiny little difference, maybe in that wheel that's being rotated around at the moment, grinding out bullshit about autism and ADHD. Maybe I might make that wheel just back off for a fraction of a degree, for a fraction of a second. That's all I can hope for, really, isn't it? Anyway, it's not my fault, alright? It's not my fault. Okay, so let's talk about this car. Just on the unlikely thing that somebody's new to here. Been at this for probably, God, it must be 2 years now. Basically, I built this car from scratch. Let's see if I can call it a car yet. I built this pile of metal from scratch. The aim is to build a car myself that can do 200 miles an hour, a long stretch. Main thing is it's going to be on the road. It's going to be a fun car that I really enjoy driving. I can use it for track days and I can use it for Sporting Bears, which is a car club where we take people out for rides in our cars and they donate to charity. Children's charity. Right, so I'll give you a little show around, and those of you that follow this project can play a game of spot the difference. Spot what's been done since you last saw the video. There are a few things. You have to be observant. There might be a few clues. Okay, so one of the things you can't see that's taken quite a lot of time is, so the last video, let's just rewind a little bit. Rewind. Last video ended with the engine firing up for the first time. Now, I should imagine most of you will have noticed that it didn't exactly run super smooth, but it did run, so that was a start. So the main thing I've been doing is stuff you can't really see a lot of. It's all to do with this wiring. And also injectors. So I because it wasn't firing properly on all 4 cylinders, I got the injectors out a little while ago. I bought a little injector kit, so I like a cleaning kit, so I cleaned all the injectors. One of them you could hear on the little testing kit thing, because you connect up the injector with it off the car, and you can hear the click 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 as the because they're electromechanical devices, like a little valve basically that opens and shuts. And one of them definitely sounded different from the others, so I thought, well, you know, electromechanical devices been sat for 1.5 years in the back of that trailer. I'm not too sure how long it was all sat in the garage of the guy I bought the engine off of, but for a while. So what I've done is I bought new injectors, but I bought the injectors that are big enough for this to run 600 horsepower. It's not really the ideal size for it running 200, but hopefully with this Fandango super duper ECU it can cope with that. Anyway, later in the video I'll probably fire it up for you if I can, but it's now running really nicely on all 4 cylinders. Yeah, it's ticking over okay. I can't do more than tick over because I still haven't connected the water system up. So that's taken a while. There are a few wiring issues where I think I said in the video before, Honda seemed to continually change the colours of their wires and the connector sensors, so they're not all the same. So there has had to be a little bit of trial and error, particularly on these cam position sensors, to get them connected up the correct way. I've now got that done. I've also changed the fuel rail for one of these super duper 20 quid eBay items. It seems to be okay, actually. It even comes with a gauge. Now, you won't be surprised to know that that gauge that comes complete with 20 quid, so I mean, what's that gauge, a fiver? You won't be surprised to know that it doesn't read quite the same as the gauge on there. But that's hardly a surprise, is it? I may be wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Constructive feedback, please. Anyway, so that's one thing that's different. The Eagle Eye spotted. Now I've got the clutch on here, because the plan for later today is to get the gearbox back on, because I haven't yet connected up the speed sensor, so I want to check, make sure I get the connections correct on there, because it's just hanging down at the moment. What else do I want to do? Oh, I want to make sure that obviously that's working, doesn't make any horrible noises when it's actually being driven. Still in a complete mess here. Hopefully some of you spotted, whoa, we have a gear lever. Okay, and I'll show you, if I get the gearbox back on, maybe I'll show you a bit better later, because I've also got tagged on here the bracket for the other end of the cables. This is another is it AliExpress or eBay? I can't remember. I've got the original gear shift thing that came with the engine, and it's all sort of plastic and horrible. So I'm justifying this because it's adjustable in lots of sorts of ways. This goes up and down. You've got different leverage points to connect the difference, so you can change when you change the leverage, obviously you're changing the movement distance and weight and all that sort of thing. But in reality, I just thought it looked really good. Now he's going to need quite a lot of covering over for IVA, because Mr. IVA won't like all these edges. I mean, they're not sharp edges, they're actually quite nicely machined, but I think it's 20 mil or 19 mil radius or some bloody thing. Anyway, so I'll have to do a whole load. But I've got to be honest, it's partly because it just, to me, looks really good. And I kind of think it suits the skeletal aspect of the car. So I made a little bracket for it to go on. You might notice, so it's going to be, there's a seat in there. You might notice it's actually, you might think it's very close to the steering wheel. And it is pretty close compared to most cars, but to my mind, you want it as close as possible. The less distance there is here, the less time it takes to change, doesn't it? So I made up this little bracket because it was too low if it was down on the chassis. Made this little bracket up, welded that up, welded that to the floor. And I've also mounted the handbrake.
Hello.
Hi, sweetie. Yeah, so I've mounted the handbrake. Where, you may ask? Where has he mounted the handbrake? Can you just see it peeking out over there? So obviously one of the things with this car is...
Obviously doing the eggs, son, so less than 5.
Don't know if you heard that. Daughter's just arrived. It's brunch for breakfast this morning. So scrambled eggs, croissants, the whole works. So that's why I'm doing this now, before I get my hands dirty, so I can go and have breakfast. Anyway, yes, so handbrake peeking out the side. We're so tight for space down here, I've got to find somewhere to put a battery, a passenger seat, a swill pot or reserve tank, whatever the hell you want to call that. I've mounted the handbrake on the right hand side, and I'll talk a little bit later about the fun and games that is. Now, if any of you are really familiar with IVA and you can see that and you go, you can't have it on the right hand side, please, please, please let me know now. I have read the chapter on handbrake, inside out and upside down, in the IVA document, and all it says is it must be easily accessible from the seated position. It doesn't say it has to be in the middle. Well, no, okay, let's rephrase this. Let's rewind and go back to the ADHD thing. I am not brilliant at reading stuff like that, and sometimes it's not the actual words, okay, because I'm, I know I'm dyslexic, but I can read words, just probably not as fast as you can. But sometimes I misread stuff, not very often. But if you are very familiar with the IVA and you know that they do not allow a handbrake on the right hand side, please let me know now. I've already welded it in and all that sort of thing, so but yeah, so please let me know before I go too far with that one. Anyway, as you can probably tell, I'm going to go and get my lovely breakfast and see my daughter, who I've not seen for a few weeks. So catch you in a minute. So one of the other things, so I've just put this on as well because I want to, and that's how the gear linkage attached. It's only tack welded at the moment, but it seems to be working okay. Be final check in a moment to see if having the gear cables coming out the opposite way, because obviously all this is designed for front engine, and then going on here the opposite way, do two wrongs make a right? We'll find out in a minute. I think it has, but anyway, so one of the other things I've done is drive shaft. So obviously I've got MX5 hubs here and a Honda engine. So the engine came with the drive shafts. So again, this is a sort of a temporary measure until I get some super duper drive shafts made up. What I got is a local engineering place to cut a set of MX5 drive shafts and a set of Honda drive shafts to the lengths I specified and tap them 12mm in the middle. So then what I've done is, obviously I've got a high tensile bolt in the middle. I then welded all the way around, and then as you can see where this is sort of fatter, I've also welded on an outer sleeve as well. I've no doubt with even doing it that way, it's still not going to be as strong as the originals. So again, it's a temporary thing because I'm not sure. Well, I said all this is so heavy, I'm probably going to change the uprights fairly shortly, and it may well include changing brakes, using hubs. I was actually looking at CV stuff off of Lotus Elise, seems to be fairly good. Anyway, so what it means is that I'm not spending a whole load of money getting custom made drive shafts made up that may well be redundant in a short time. And whatever I did with these, they're not going to withstand loads and loads of horsepower. So these are a temporary measure. I'm hoping temporary enough that they will be okay with this engine as it is. But no doubt what I will do is test them fairly early on with those sodding great big tyres on. And if I do a large lot of revs and drop the clutch and they don't break, then they're good enough. If they break, then I've got to make some new ones. So there we are. That's drive shafts, adapting drive shafts. All these things are, they take quite a lot of time when you're having to adapt things to fit. So obviously, I know they look a bit of a pig's ear, and I've got to say they're nowhere near as neat as I hoped they would be, but I suspect a little bit more with a grinder and some matte black paint now would probably make them look a whole lot better. But this is where a lot of the time goes. You can imagine. So it cost me £100 for the engineering works around the corner, because these are really hardened steel. So they were having to use their, I can't even remember what they said they were now, the tools they had to use. Cadmium tipped, maybe? I don't know. Sounded pretty serious. And it all takes a lot of time doing all this sort of thing. Anyway, so 2 reasons I've got that on. Firstly is I'm going to fire up the engine soon and change gears, and hopefully I'll be able to see from the rate the wheel's spinning whether first is up there or whether it's all reversed around. So, and also Yeah, handbrake. Let's talk about handbrake. Yeah, so all the way around here, we have a handbrake. Let's see if I make it easier to see. So we're right hand side of the seat. Now, obviously, I bought an MX5 handbrake and I bought MX5 handbrake cables. Originally, I thought I was going to fit it in the middle, and I was hoping that the distance to handbrake to wheels wouldn't be a whole lot different from an MX5, and I'd be able to make them fit. Obviously, putting it over here adds a whole load of complexity to it, because we've got a much longer run to the passenger side than we do the driver's side. And when I was playing around the other day with the original MX5 handbrake cables I bought, you won't be surprised to know, because of course I put these on backwards as well, so the handbrake cable has got to come out and back before forward, so you lose a fair whack of length there as well. So you won't be surprised to know that the one on that side was probably going to be too short to connect. So it's where another whole load of time goes. So I got myself on good old eBay, and of course the ends on handbrakes, every single one, everyone's got different. I thought you could buy like a kit that's universal to make up your own handbrake cables, but I couldn't find any, even going on the kit car site. So I don't know, maybe it's not a thing you can get, or I've just looked in the wrong place. Anyway, MX5 one is about 1 meter long. So I was then searching and searching, and I thought, well, if I have a look for other Mazdas of about the same age, maybe they use longer cables but with the same ends on. And lo and behold, I remembered a long time ago, my father had I think it was an estate, I can't remember. Anyway, Mazda 626. So I looked those up, and lucky enough, they've got the same ends on, and they are about 20 centimeters longer. So some fingers crossed now that the longer one will be long enough so I can kind of match up a mounting point here somewhere, because I think it's easier if I can keep the run of this straight and then have those, rather than, because obviously where the cable that goes on the handbrake isn't sleeved or shielded, whatever you want to call it, making this go around corners is somewhat harder, because you then you need pulley wheels and things like that. So what I'm hoping is when I connect the longer one up, it will come to much the same position as that. So let's have a go. It's certainly a case where you can certainly see where if you're making a second or third one of these, and you actually wrote down stuff as you went along, how things would be a lot quicker, because of course a lot of these problems I'm solving, hopefully I'm coming up with a solution now, and they wouldn't need solving a second time. So that's the longer cable now fitted that side, which actually now means the driver's side is slightly longer than the other one, but that can be sorted out with a bit of routing. So all I've got to do now is make a bracket up for those. I've got a little tube there, because obviously we're going to have a bulkhead here, so that will kind of guide that through. Weld that on there, and I've got to make a bracket to hold in hand. That's obviously not finished, but that's in hand, because I'm half thinking I don't want to do the brakes proper and do all the bleeding through, but I'm thinking if I've got the handbrake working, I could try and do a little drive of this car before too long, because I've got brakes to stop me. And I mean just in a tiny little drive, 5 mile an hour and stop. Okay, so I've done a bit more welding on this bracket. I make my excuse now about my welding at the moment. I've had a cataract in my right eye come on very quickly, which means I'm currently waiting for an operation, but also it means that my close-up vision, my glasses are kind of way off. So I'm kind of having to weld one-eyed at the moment, which doesn't help. And what do you reckon? You watching Brian from Swamp? You watching Brian from Oak Swamp? Inspired by you, mate. A bracket with lots of holes in, because I've got to agree with Brian. Holes look cool. They look light. They look racing. Obviously, I've got lots of holes to adjust these around. So, let's see then. So, if we have a twiddle with our gear lever. Oh, look. There we go. We've got hopefully first, second, third, fourth, yeah. Fifth. Now I'm not 100% sure at the moment. I thought I'd bought a 5-speed gearbox. When I googled that number there, it tells me it's a 6-speed gearbox. But when I try and do gears, there's nothing down there. So have I got a 5 or a 6? The handbrake bracket ready to weld on. Okay, so that's the little update. That's where I am at the moment. Please remember, if you think this video has been too moany or too political, remember what Skin says. And most importantly of all, the old like, subscribe, all that malarkey. There is a thank you thing on here now. That'd be really nice if someone could chuck a couple of quid around, you know, if you want to aid the next video along. And also, you notice you can do a join thing as well. I'm going to start doing some, I don't know if there'll be members only videos, but there will certainly be, in fact this one is probably going to be the first one that will be released to members first. There we go, catch you all later. Oh, by the way, I'm off on a teddy bear run next Sunday from Goodwood, so if anyone watching this does the teddy bear run thing, I've never done it before. Come and say hello if you see me, be in the blue TVR. I don't know how it all works. Anyway, catch you all later, bye. Have a good Christmas and all that kind of crap.